Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you compilations from previous seasons. In this episodes, in Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls, the seasons are 6, 7, and 8, and this is a milestone episode. This is the series finale. Episode 67, the series finale of the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls. There will only ever be 67 episodes of the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls, and this is the finale. And thank you for tuning in. The title of this finale is Jump. Taking the leap out of the pains of the old world and into the joys of the Web3 future. This podcast compilation is a combination of 4 clips from 4 podcasts from previous seasons. In this case, it's 3 from season 7 and 1 from season 6. And let's kick things off with who I spoke with. The first conversation in this episode is with Haden Patrick. Haden is the director of business operations at Cordial Systems. We spoke in June 2024 as part of my conversations of Crypto Hipster Presents Reporter on the Ground, which were live interviews taken at Consensus in Austin that year. We talked about why disaster recovery processes are a critical component of building crypto custody infrastructures. Second, my conversation was with Karan Bharadwaj. He's the CEO of Arithmic. We talked about, and this was season 7. This is in June 2024, and we talked about unlocking the full potential of blockchain by creating the first universal layer 2 protocol with native restaking. Since then, restaking has become a big thing. This was one of the first conversations. That was an amazing discussion. Third was a conversation with Tim Wang, the COO of Elixir. We talked in June 2024 about how to empower decentralized order book exchanges. And that, too, has taken off since. And last but not least, a wonderful conversation in season 6, the very beginning, the 4th episode of season 6, with Michael O'Rourke back in early September 2023. He's the CEO and the co-founder of the Pocket Network. We talked about why decentralized physical infrastructure networks and are blockchain's next big trend, and they have become bigger since that conversation. So all of these discussions were early on in areas that have become perpetuated, that have grown significantly since the conversations. And most of Web3 has grown significantly since I started season 6 all the way through season 8. My latest podcast season was season 9. And that'll be part of a compilation with season 10 when I launch that in April. So thank you for all my podcasts are, by the way, available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. You can find the Crypto Hipster Podcast Station. And so again, this was episode 6. This is episode 67. This is the finale. It is entitled simply Jump. Taking the leap out of the pains of the old world and into the joys of the Web3 future. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you when I kick off season 10 in April. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for enjoying these compilations, enjoying the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls. These 67 episodes will make up my next 400 or so books. Thanks for tuning in. My books have a new format, and you'll love it. So thank you, and I'll see you soon. So I'm thinking, when I think of custody, I think, okay, there's a few options, right?
Yeah.
There's like the user like me who wants like everything decentralized, who wants their own keys and their own app.
Yep.
Right. Then you have companies like a Swan Bitcoin, where they're overseeing, they have all the data and everything, but you're allowed to use your wallet the way you want to use it.
Right.
And then we have people who demand or want centralized control over their crypto. Like, how do you, there's a gray area in between like that we have to navigate in order to move Web3 and crypto forward, right? Mm-hmm. How do you go through that murky gray area to the other side, you know, and get people more comfortable with the decentralized solution?
I don't really have an answer for you. Primarily because I don't think what we're doing is giving people a decentralized solution or centralized. We're kind of giving them a tool to operate how they want to operate. You know, there's when we talk about consensus with our system, we're talking about consensus within the perimeter of your own environment, right? So by default, you know, by using this product, you have centralized the ability of you to hold sovereignty over your assets, which I think most people want. But if you want to participate in a decentralized environment, you know, our product is just as good for maintaining, generating private keys and holding them for you to have access, you know, to decentralized environments. But I wouldn't call it like the system that's really going to provide decentralization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so your solution works in all three environments.
Yeah. And what we really think is, if you look at the transition, the blurring edges of the traditional finance world and decentralized finance, we're kind of pushing at that boundary right now, right? Mm-hmm. And we're sort of pushing with our product to be at that boundary, because we want to offer these people who are very used to being in a centralized world, you know, the institutional brokers, the financial or the investment firms, who are seeing, you know, the opportunity to start moving money that they control into the decentralized environment. We see our product as an enabler for that, because again, you who are used to maintaining control can continue to control your assets in a very centralized way while participating in that environment.
I like it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that people who were here before FTX and are still here exhibit is resilience.
Yes.
Right? You help bolster financial resilience. How do you help people become, and their self-sovereignty, become more resilient? How do you bolster financial resilience? How do you do it? And why is it important?
Resilience. I guess from our perspective, resilience really comes down to having a disaster recovery plan, right? You know, we manage private keys. Essentially, we provide a customer the ability to manage their private keys internally, you know. So for them, the worst day comes from two methods. One, someone messes up and sends funds where they're not supposed to. Well, if you apply the appropriate usage of policies, that shouldn't happen. You know, if you spend the time, and particularly if you're an organization that manages a sizable amount of funds, you're probably spending the time to think through what your risk management is going to look like. And in that process, you're going to create tiers of responsibility, right? And you're going to create roles, and you're going to assign appropriate access to various accounts that these roles are going to have. And if you do that correctly, then you really shouldn't be in a position where one person can accidentally send things to where they're not supposed to. Did you you remember a month ago, the gentleman, the Slurf Ming coin, who...
Yes, Slurf, yes.
Yeah, he erased, or what did he do? He
erased like 12 million, more than that. Like.
Yep. So precisely, and I think that's a one-man team, so yeah. I can't help him. But he could have had risk management processes in place. But precisely, one person went and just did a transaction that totally erased that value. And so with our product, you can engage a structure that fits your institutional needs to make sure that people have the access to do the operations they're supposed to do. But the opportunity for them to either maliciously or by accident, misappropriate funds is very small. And that's the kind of thing that you should be reviewing on an annual basis. somebody left the firm. I hope you're going to use the database to make sure this person no longer participates. And you can do that without interacting with a third party, right? So that's cool. And then having at the end of the day, if you have a node that goes down, that has all the key information, we have disaster recovery processes that enable you to restore that process. And that's an important concept to providing resilience.
So now I like the alignment. I'm looking at a hole in the alignment. Say you have everything aligned. Say all the incentives are aligned, and the people come in with liquidity are receiving airdrops, right? And there are bots out there who are providing no liquidity, yet they're getting multiple airdrops, and then they're robbing the liquidity of the end user who brings liquidity in, right? So how do you deal with those external factors, external risks that tear down the security of your alignment?
Great question. So the existing airdrop models have always rubbed us the wrong way. We've never been comfortable with the way that airdrops have functioned in the past. So the way we do airdrops is that we pay out airdrops, or we sort of distribute airdrops within the pools themselves. So rather than handing out tokens to random wallets based on certain conditions, in the multi-chain staking pool that users are staking their various tokens, we distribute airdrops through these pools in the form of returns themselves. So in that way, the activities that they need to perform in order to get airdrops are all tied to the pool. And so bots don't really come into the story here, because we're not sort of incentivizing actions that bots would perform and giving airdrops. Rather, we are baking it into the multi-chain staking pools themselves.
That makes sense. That's a good idea.
And in fact, in the future, what we also want to do is we want to encourage other projects to execute their airdrops on our network through this mechanism, so that you have users who are while still participating in the way that they do in the blockchain space, but you can give out airdrops to people who are actually performing actions or in the right way.
I like it. Very cool. So, I went to, I don't know if you ever had this opportunity to go to Consensus in May, in Texas.
Not this year, but we are going to be at HCC.
Okay, very good, very good. What I learned was that we still have fragmentation in the industry, right?
Yes.
Still have people who are Bitcoiners who call every other coin a shitcoin. They're not, but we need to stop being tribal.
Yeah.
We need unity. How can we knock down the silos and become unified?
I think that so Bitcoin maximalism has been around for a while, and personality wise I like them because they are very, very libertarian, and it's an interesting way of looking at things. And I think that as you move further towards the L2 stacks, less tribal and more constrained by these fairly complicated systems that people have cobbled together, right? Because L2s are fairly difficult to build out, and building out decentralized L2s is even harder. And the more you go in the ZK direction, building out a decentralized ZK network where people can just connect their nodes, start generating proofs, start verifying, etc., that is an incredibly hard problem. And one thing that has always stuck with me throughout my journey in the blockchain space is that no matter how dedicated the developer team is or how dedicated people are, people usually don't like to run their own infrastructure, right? And which is why companies like Infura do so incredibly well, right? And so it's like this very difficult problem that you build out your network, and it's difficult to decentralize it. So it ends up being a silo no matter what you do. And then, a lot of bridges, etc., need to be supported. But it's a organic problem, is what I would like to point out, first of all. Second, I think that over time, for the end user and end customer, the siloed nature, even if it continues to exist on the tech level, should become invisible. And it should almost be like a landscape of multiple projects, multiple actions and activities that they want to undertake without sort of having to manually connect to these silos, which is essentially what the situation is today.
Ethereum has a few things that maybe Solana does or doesn't. I don't really follow the Solana ecosystem too much, but I do know that I was before by one of my friends or family. How do you buy a ETH node? And I'm like, I don't think that's the current state of how to make money on Ethereum. I think it's staking, liquid staking, restaking. I don't really know too much of the difference between them, but it looks to me like that might be the future of DeFi. So, how do you see it, and what else do you think will be happening within the next year to be the future of DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, like running your own node, like is particularly on ETH, is like still pretty high barrier to entry, right? Like I think the minimum requirement for a node is like still 32 ETH, which like most people can't afford, right? And so kind of DeFi 1.0 was like liquid staking with like Lido and a bunch of others, right? Like with EigenLayer launching their token, and there's a bunch of like liquid restaking protocols that have launched tokens as well, right? Like effectively what they're doing is like a shared security, right? Like using staked ETH as kind of another layer on top of ETH. So like that's kind of a trend that's been playing out this year. I mean, there's like things like Bitcoin ecosystem stuff, right? Like there's a number of L2s, right? Like ordinals, runes, right? Like people still kind of like to collect things, right? Like even though NFT volumes and prices have gone down dramatically, right? Like once there's a new primitive like runes that comes out, right? There's still a lot of hype, and so I think there's still a decent amount of runes activity on Bitcoin. And then I think it's like people talk about AI and the intersection of AI and crypto, and there's a number of projects that are kind of, I mean, very early, quasi interesting. Basically, like if you think about AI as a major force in just kind of revolutionary technologies, right? Like there is something to be said about like decentralizing AI, right? Because like if somebody has like all of your data and like basically can make a humanoid AI copy of you, right? Like then they basically could control your life, right? There's like a lot of these like newer phishing kind of spoofing attacks that happen, and so I think the goal potentially with like crypto times AI is like more of a deepened narrative where no one party has access to all the data, right? And like you can kind of shard the data and put it back together with the right keys and whatever. So that's like one of the things that like people are speculating on, right? Crypto times AI is a hot topic that VCs have been investing in. But yeah, it's way too early to be seeing like how actually useful or impactful that will be. I mean, AI in the traditional technology space is still fairly early as well.
So one way to that decentralized infrastructures are better equipped is the access to nodes, right? Quicker communication, and then what are some others?
Yeah, we our head of protocol, Daniel Shansky, there's a lot of trilemmas in the blockchain space. He coined the RPC trilemma. So that's reliability, performance, and cost. So those are when people are using Pocket, they're actually using Pocket on the merits of, in most cases, on the merits of the quality of the service itself. So really a big piece of the promise here from not just Pocket, but many deep in networks is that reliability, performance, and cost benefit. So to give some examples here, on the cost side, the cloud is by far the most expensive. There's kind of three levels of infrastructure, if you will. The cloud is by far the most expensive. If you're running or renting a bare metal service, that's a one single server that you're renting at Hetzner or OVH or something like that. It's generally about 5 times cheaper than the cloud. And if you're purchasing a server and then hosting it in a data center yourself, you're looking at something that's 2 to 3 times cheaper than the bare metal option. So when we talk about cost at a fundamentals level, the question is where the value accrues in the value chain, right? We've got Amazon and we've got Google that have obviously accrued a lot of value with what they're building. But it's our belief that if we're building this kind of modular ecosystem within not just the protocols, but you're going to see the various different pieces of the middleware stack being built on top of it. That value is going to accrue across the board from the very bottom of people running the servers to the end user using whichever DApp, right? You see it with how people are trying to solve MEV, for example, and where that value is accruing, and just generally, I think we'll be in a better world with these protocols while being able to accrue lots of value, but being governed by the users at the end of the day. So there's a performance side of things, right? If you look at an infrastructure provider, they're generally in 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 regions around the world. We have the ability to launch many more regions much more quickly because we don't bear the underlying cost of running that infrastructure as a company, for example. So we actually have 16 gateways around the world where the end user can then access their information, ensuring that you are connected to the closest node humanly possible so that you can get your data as quickly as possible. And then especially on the reliability portion, we have a lot of redundancy within most deep-in networks, so that full nodes, for example, are very finicky. They go out of sync, they go down, they restart, and having many people operating these nodes, not just in one region, results in a lot of redundancy, ensuring that you have basically full uptime with your application, right? So those are really the main portions there, and I'd say that Pocket Network Inc. we're building a business on top of Pocket Network, and we are now load balancing, serving real users, and I'd say we're probably the largest scale company, doing 1 to 2 billion requests a day with a completely permissionless network underlying us, which I think is a really cool and amazing thing.
You reminded me of something when you talked about Amazon, and I don't remember if you remember this. I used to have a BRD wallet, right? And I was trading back in 2018, 19. And at the time, Amazon said, we'll never, ever enter the crypto space. And so I had a technical complaint with BRD, and I got an email back, and it went through Amazon. Amazon was the underlying infrastructure that BRD built their decentralized wallet on. I was like, I don't understand why, this is happening. So I want to talk about, the middleware stack that you use, how does that work, and how is it decentralized, and how we're not relying on the centralized, players. What makes you different and unique?
Yeah, so you've got a company like Amazon, massive company, and the actual company is what's coordinating the global infrastructure footprint that they have with all the data centers that they have around the world, right? That company has overhead, it has costs, they have to take a margin, which are incredibly high. They take incredibly high margins with what they're building, whereby you have a protocol like Pocket, which coordinates this infrastructure the same as an Amazon would, but doesn't take any rent, because you have this network of individuals who are then, directly providing the service. And the important part is that the coordination is happening via the protocol's rules that everyone is agreeing by. And as a result, you're removing out one very critical and important cost center and coordination center, and where decisions get made, and saying, hey, it's either no rent, and you're not the protocol is not taking any rent, and the actual users of the protocol are dictating what the rules are, right? So, a protocol like Pocket, has a DAO. The DAO votes on various things, whether it's the monetary policy, the DAO treasury, or protocol upgrades. But the important part is that this protocol, and what I view blockchains as, purely just coordination systems. They're coordinating humans, and there's not been very many of those in the history of humanity. And these are really the first ones that are, native to the internet, which is even more impactful. But at the end of the day, you're removing this massive need of overhead and replacing that with a protocol that doesn't take any rent.